photos, so it'll be even further confusing.
All right.
So I know you've sat around and listened to a lot of fine presentations today. It's been a great day, and thanks so much for everybody again attending all the festivities, including the dinners, the movies, everything's been offered. Again, Craig put all this together with the help of Tammy. Yes, we know. And, you know, amazing. I can't believe it's been another year, because here I am again doing a Fouke Monster update, as I do now annually. And, you know, I'm thinking, wow, it's been another year, and I still haven't caught that sucker. But Craig entrusts me to sort of send this thing and finale it out, so I'm going to try to entertain you and thrill you with a few updates. I'm even going to tell you a story about some of the best and baddest Bigfoot hunters out there, and I'll tell you just a little bit about the movie, and I might even play a song that's near and dear to my heart before we play Boggy Creek Monsters. So first off, you know, just in general, a lot, I still get people asking me, so have there been any new sightings in the Boggy Creek area? Now, these are people that apparently didn't read my books or are just coming into this, and that's fine. But yes, it is true. There have been many, many sightings since the 1970s. It just didn't end with the movie. The creature got a taste of fame, and, you know, ever since then he's apparently been popping out from trees and running across roads and scaring a few people, just as he's always done. And I call it a he, but of course we know it's more than that, a small population of these creatures that are indigenous to southern Arkansas and East Texas and Louisiana. And, they still remain elusive. I often hear from somebody who has a game camera photo or a photo of the Fouke Monster. I'm like, finally, yes. But they always end in a dead end because I suppose most people with game cameras have trouble with hard drives and transfer of digital data, and they always seem to be deleted every time. So maybe as some of the younger generation that comes along is more technologically savvy, we'll get that picture. So that is one question I get. Where is the photo? And there have been rumors, but I've yet to get my hands on a photo, even really a blurry one. There was one on Google Images that I saw, Google Maps, but it was still not definitive because I think that the guy that drives that little Google car, you know, he's going down this old dirt road, county road, and you know, down in Jonesville near Fouke, and you know, you see something up there, and it kind of looks like a Bigfoot, but then this guy must have accelerated and got the hell out of there, because the rest of the Google map is all blurred there, down near the Sulphur River. So, you know, I think I'm pretty sure the Google driver did see something, but unfortunately, again, it wasn't even a blob squatch, it was a blur squatch. But there have been sightings, and I usually tell about what's happened in the last year or so. How many folks were at Big Pines Lodge last year when I did a lot of folks. And so now you know, it's not as scenic with the bayou behind me, but you can actually hear me because I'm not trying to scream, and I'm not scream over the mosquitoes noise. And you can hear me better with the microphone. But yeah, so last year, you know, I talked about the Texarkana Gazette newspaper carrier that was in May, and she saw something run across the road at about 4:30 a.m. And again, that was another newspaper carrier that had seen it. Prior to that, a newspaper carrier up there had a couple of sightings. And so, as I always say, I'm still trying to get that newspaper delivery job so that I can have a sighting. But the last year, it's been a little thin for sightings. There have been some that have come along. There was one that occurred in May. I got an email from a gentleman who said they had been driving on Highway 49 south towards Shreveport, and they were in the area where that crosses Boggy Creek. And that he was driving, but his wife was looking at the scenery, and this was in the afternoon, and she saw in a clearing what she perceived to be this large, hair-covered figure standing on two legs. So, you know, I followed up and, of course, called the woman and talked to both of them and determined that, you know, fairly credible, and seemingly she had seen something. And last time I was in Fouke, I even drove that area to try to place where they had seen it. And there is just a wall of trees there, and it was a little bit difficult to try to determine where exactly she had seen it. So that was one of those where I wasn't quite sure of the exact location, nor were they, because they were driving and didn't really you know, mark it on the GPS. So it just kind of looks all the same down there when you're going on 549, because they cut that highway literally through the woods. There's no convenience stores, there's no exits, nothing. I mean, you know, usually there's an Olive Garden and a Whataburger. No. This is literally cut through the middle of the woods, so it's just trees. And I kind of passed that area, and I realized the next exit was, it was at least 5 miles down before I could do a U-turn and come back up towards Fouke and exit there at North Fouke Road, which, you know, we've all, Fouke, how can there be a North and South Fouke? It's not even that big. Yeah, that's some Yankee Fouke folk that live up there in the north. Keith Crabtree that was here earlier, he said he lives on the south side. I said, that must be the rough part of town where the big old monsters live. And so that was kind of a joke that there's a North Fouke Road, and if you drive up there off 549, you'll see that. But don't be confused, because there's really no South Fouke Road. Anyhow, there was another incident, which is a little, fits a little more of the Fouke Monster MO, which occurred on January 13th of this year. A gentleman who, okay, this is a creepier looking Bigfoot than has normally come around to these events, and he's looking at me really strange. I did write a really good positive profile of you in my book, so I think I'm good with you, right? All right, look at that. So yeah, feel free to get the autograph of the Bigfoot. And it's you know it's a southern Bigfoot because look at his hair. He originally played drums in Lynyrd Skynyrd years ago and retired from music into roaming the bottoms there in southern Arkansas. So that's the hair, and definitely looks southern rock. No, you don't do jerky. We gig frogs down here. What do you call a frog with no legs? Unhoppy. Anyway, so yes, in all seriousness, and how can you be serious with this? But I told you this is going to be entertaining. And I have to be entertaining because the opening act was Texas barbecue. You know, you really got to kick it up to be good after that. Which was good barbecue, by the way, really good barbecue. So, anyway, so picture yourself on the Sulphur River at midnight, January 13th of this year. You put in by the park there and you motor up for a while, and you can go to the dam at Wright Pateman Lake, and then you could just cut that motor off and drift all the way back down towards Fouke. And this gentleman was on the boat, and there was a couple other guys, and they were just listening. Pretty peaceful there coming down that part of the river. And he said they heard this big something huge hit the water. And the first thing it said was, it sounded like a fish. I think that was a fish. Do you think that was a fish? Yeah, I think that was a fish. Do you really think that was a fish? No, that wasn't a fish. It was way too big. And they said as they came to that position, they could hear something moving off in the brush. So, immediately they drew out one of the flashlights and tried to put it over there, and they said the flashlight didn't work. This is the curse of Bigfoot. So they threw that one down, grabbed the other one, and that one didn't work, which is like double curse of Bigfoot, I guess. But luckily they had a thermal imager, and they pulled that FLIR out, and they put it right there on the area where they heard this thing moving, and sure enough, he said he saw a huge figure. It was definitely on two legs, and it looked right at him like this. Now, it was exciting. He looked at it for a few moments. You could see this thing on the bank, and he said he passed it over to his fellow passenger here and said, you got to check this out. But as he did, he hit the power button, and it went off. So the second guy pulled it up and saw nothing. And as soon as he turned the power back on, the thing had run off. So unfortunately, yes, another close brush with being able to capture even a thermal image of the creature. And this is somebody that I know, and I'm quite positive whatever they said happened. And I'm quite familiar with the curse of Bigfoot, and this is the way it goes with technology. But again, you don't know when you're going to have an incident like this, when something's going to happen, and you may be as ready as you think you are. But in those moments, they're exciting, the adrenaline rush, you're in a boat. These guys are pretty big. He said it was all rocking back and forth, total chaos. And you only have literally just a few seconds to, take your photo or do whatever you do. Because people, I always say, well, all these cell phones you have, how come nobody can get the photo? I said, well, unless you're just walking through the woods with a cell phone at the ready, so you've got a chance to take a picture of something you're going to see for 2 seconds. It's difficult. I got to get it out. I got to get the app open, and I've got to, aim it. And by then the thing's gone. And if you walk through the woods, like this, and you're not paying attention, you will trip on the thorns and the vine and the undergrowth and cobwebs and sticks. You have to pay attention to what you're doing if you're walking through the woods. And if you're driving in a car, the things, it still applies unless you have a GoPro mounted on the dash of the car or something. You just don't have time to be whipping it out. You do have a camera, but it's still a hard proposition to get that photo. Now, speaking of the Sulphur River, I'll tell you this is just something, it's not a sighting, but it's a little short aside about 4 guys. Now, these are some of the rugged badasses of Bigfoot. These guys, they know what they're doing. They are prepared in all situations. And they were camping there at Alex Smith Park. How many folks have ever camped near Fouke at Alex Smith Park? Beautiful park. It's a great place to camp. It's kind of the only place. People often email me and say, where do I go to camp there? But if you look at my FoukeMonster.net site, there's a link called Visiting, and I tell you right where to camp. The best part about it, it's free of charge. Just roll in there, camp, right on the side of the Smith Lake. Beautiful cypress trees growing out there. It's a great place to visit and camp, and that's where these guys were camped. And so they had a boat, and a lot of times these guys take canoes because it's quiet up the bayous. But if you really want to go a distance, it's good to have a motor. So they had a motor in this case, a motor John boat, and they were going to take a run up. They were on the Sulphur River, and so they took this boat a while down the river, looking around, looking at areas, and it was daylight. This wasn't a nighttime thing. It's not one of those spooky stories. But they drove up a while, and again, they're very prepared. They have audio equipment, cameras, thermal imaging device. They got it all. They're completely prepared. Survival kits, knives, guns, Not, again, not to shoot a Bigfoot, but you know, a wild hog has been known to run through there, or a dozen or 2 dozen. And so they get up there and, you know, they floated, they were going downstream. So looked around for a while, it's a beautiful day, and then decided they're gonna head back upstream. So as they're going, moving, you know, upstream, beautiful day, the motor kind of goes quiet. Everybody looks back at the guy driving the boat. It's his boat. And they're like, what's up? I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't know. Something with the motor. Start messing with it. You know, tugs it. Everything's cool. We're driving. They're driving up there, and you know, go a little bit further, and the motor quits again. So, of course, every time you stop, the river's going. It's a pretty good current in the sulfur, so you're backing up. So you just got to here, and now the motor quits, and you just see that point disappearing back down the river. So, you know, realized there was a situation. Everybody turns around again to the driver and is looking at him like, dude, what's up? And finally it was like, well, I didn't bring the other tank of gas and we ran out. Now, I told you, these are some of the baddest Bigfoot hunters around, and they are always prepared. But there was a detail here that they forgot, and that was to fill up the boat tank with gas, and always have a second tank. You know, you always need that. So there was enough to get that thing started again. Well, like, well, they'll think, well, let's just get out. We'll just go to the edge. Well, the Sulphur River was up pretty high, and these branches were sticking out. So the only way to get to the edge was to go through all these branches. So it was sort of attempting to get to the side. And again, the motor dies again. And now it looks pretty hopeless because there's really no way to get to the edge. So there is a paddle in there. Again, these are the baddest. They got it all. They pull out that paddle and start, but the current is too much. So they're still walking, you know, watching the point where they were at disappear. And so now there's really no way to get to the edge. So they're thinking, we're gonna have to go all the way to the next boat ramp, which is all the way past Fouke, south of Fouke, south of Boggy Creek, which is a long way, because a couple of these guys had taken this trip before, and it was an overnight trip, which didn't seem too appealing because you know, they didn't bring a lot of food. One of the guys had a Cliff Bar in his backpack, so at least one of the guys had that. But these are kind of some big husky dudes, all except for one of them really. So that Cliff Bar wasn't going to do good for overnight. And so ultimately what happened here is they realized that they've got to get this boat moving somehow. So what they did was they took out the tube that's feeding into the tank, and they cut off the little filter. Who needs these filters anyways, you know what I mean? The gas these days is totally pure, right? Probably like a quarter ethanol anyway. Anyway, so by tilting up the gas can, and one guy holding that thing right into the corner of that, and then there's a little hand pump. So one guy held it, one guy has a hand pump, and he's pumping it like this, and they crank the motor, and it works. And so as long as the guy's sitting here doing this with the thing's moving, and they're getting close, and you can see the out ramp right there. There's where you can get out of the sulfur. And again, this is the only place, unless you want to float down overnight, right through Fouke Monster Country, a long way. And so the dude kept pumping, and the gas, you know, he kept putting as much into that gas, and there was only like this much in there, according to these gentlemen. And it's getting closer and closer and closer, and it was just, I mean, the sweat was coming down, realizing that this, you know, if we can't get another 25 yards, you can see it right there. If we can't get 25 yards, we're never going to get out of this river until tomorrow. And we're going to have to fight over this Cliff Bar. So these, you know, these awesome Bigfooters kept pumping, and, you know, it's like a comedy movie. It's kind of like Deliverance, with a little extra comedy and a little less of that whole snort like a pig thing. Although, you know, that kind of started coming to mind because, you know, they said as they were there, in their mind, you know, all this stuff was racing, like, man, literally. I mean, it was funny and everything, but this couldn't be pretty. And you'd be floating helpless downstream all night, and, you know, who knows what's in those woods. And so, you know, they kept pumping, and miraculously, literally, got up to the edge of that boat ramp before that engine killed. And I kid you not, literally touched that ground, and one of them jumps out and pulls the boat, and that gas stopped. That was it. There was no more in there. They barely got back. And so, you know, I didn't want to use the names to tarnish the reputation of these Bigfooters, these guys that are always prepared in the woods. You know, a guy you would go out with, a guy that you would trust yourself with. And, you know, they wouldn't run out of gas. And they're still looking at the guy whose boat, I mean, you just assume the guy got gas, right? You would think the guy got gas. Anyway, so I wanted to withhold the names to protect the guilty. But you know who was in that boat? I'm going to point those guys out. I am. Because these are the baddest Bigfoot hunters. We got Jerry Hestan. My life as a Bigfoot hunter. Now Jerry, let's see, what job was Jerry doing? I think he was holding the thing into the gas, doing his job. That's played the part of that guy. The guy in the front, he's mostly innocent. His name was Mark Porter, and you know, he's been a long time Bigfoot researcher. He was just sort of like the George Washington of this whole thing, which was great to be in the front of the boat. He's further away from the guy that forgot the gas. However, when they hit the trees and stuff, he was the first guy that kept getting whack, whack, whack by the trees, and was the first guy to say, there's no way we're getting to the bank, so can we turn around? So, you know, the George Washington was played by Mark Porter. The guy, well, actually the mastermind. I mean, he's the one that came up with the little trick to get the boat out and knew to cut off the filter, who needs a filter, and who got the motor started. He did forget the gas, but this is Tom Shirley. In fact, my wingman right there played the part. And you know who the guy was that was sitting there going like this? Working. You guessed it, me. So those are four of the baddest Bigfoot hunters around, and apparently we narrowly escaped a soothing evening trip down the Sulphur River, living on one Cliff Bar, of which was mine, by the way.
What if that was God trying to give you your first sight?
What's that?
What if that was your picture? God was trying to get you to go all the way down and you see it.
Well, that's true. See, we might have just should have abandoned everything and just floated down the river. We would have seen like 4 or 5 sightings. Who knows? But yeah, we pumped our way with that gas and everything, and you know, it was a fun trip. But it just was funny, and goes to show you, with as much preparation as you may have, and you know, all the equipment you may bring into the field, and you're certain you're going to get a photo, you're certain it always malfunctions. You always forget something. You forgot a battery. You forgot food. I mean, I will say Jerry did have a moon pie with him, but since I don't consider that actual food, it's a food byproduct, I won't count that. But really, those guys are my best buddies, and we have great adventures, and those are some of the funny stories that result out of this over time, that we get in the field, away from the conferences, and enjoy the outdoors. So, a couple of more things. First, I'll just lead up to what we're going to watch tonight, the Boggy Creek Monster documentary. I'm sure some of you have seen that. How many people have seen it already? Yeah, definitely. It's been released since last November. It's a film that was done by a company out of Ohio called Small Town Monsters that has been making some very well received documentaries, and Boggy Creek Monster was their third film. The first one was called Minerva Monster, and it was about a little small town case in Minerva, Ohio. The second one was Beast of Whitehall, which talks about the famous New York Whitehall Bigfoot case. And then, of course, if you're doing something called Small Town Monsters, eventually you're going to want to do the Fouke Monster, Boggy Creek Monster. And so they wanted to jump on that. And fortunately for me, I had met the director and mastermind, Seth Breedlove, several years ago, and we had discussed our mutual admiration for these small town monster cases. And so it was natural to team up for this. I had already done the groundwork. I had the witnesses. You know, if you need the mayor to do something, I certainly could put in a word there and have whatever we needed to film this. And it was an amazing journey from the idea of filming this to actually filming it. There's a lot of pre-production involved. You know, what you see here was things that were planned out. We had a shot, script outline, and all those things you have to think about before you go down there and shoot. And we shot it for approximately 7 days in Fouke. That's all the main principal photography took to interview everybody, to get the scenic photography. And for me, it was one of the best things I've ever done so far in my cryptozoological career, or whatever you want to call it, because what I got to do was take these guys out into the places where people had sighted the creatures, the places where me and my cohorts had often walked, where we had run out of gas once, and to take them out there and to show them the places where they needed to film. And it was very full circle for me, because it was something that Smokey Crabtree had done so many years earlier for Charles Pierce. When Charles Pierce made The Legend of Boggy Creek and came down there is no way he could have made that movie without Smokey, because Smokey was the guy he met that could take him out there on the bayou and put him in the places that he could capture these beautiful shots. And if you've seen The Legend of Boggy Creek, just the opening sequence, it was all filmed primarily what they call the magic hour. Has anybody ever heard the term the magic hour? It's a time when the sun is setting, the sun is rising, just in that time. And those are the time when animals and game and birds are active. Things are just waking up, or things are starting to wind down in the evening. That sun is starting to drop. And if you think about it, The Legend of Boggy Creek, all those shots where the sun's about to drop, they were beautiful, scenic, cinematic moments that were genius. Because in your mind, the imagination, you knew as soon as that sun got down, something was going to happen. That's when things were going to get scary. And so those were genius shots, and part of what makes The Legend of Boggy Creek so spooky and so effective. And so to take this film crew out there and to sort of show them around to the places that I learned by going up there time after time and having the locals show me. You know, I had to have them show me, and to take them around. It was sentimental to me because I felt I'd come full circle from the kid that saw the movie in the film, saw the film in the drive-in so many years earlier, to have some sort of role in that, to keep the legend alive, and to bring you accounts of new witnesses that have seen things in modern times. So, you know, I owe a lot to Smokey, and I'll be the first to say that in some ways I maybe, you know, you could say I'm carrying on the legacy, or I picked it up and bringing it, but, you know, I'm writing on the things that these guys have built before me, the film, and even further back than that with Smokey's family and his history of sightings and him helping Charles Pierce on that film. So for me to come along and be a part of that legend was just an emotional experience, and it's one of the greatest things I've done. And I hope that translates into the movie, and we tried to film at Magic Hour. I certainly tried to obviously take them into the spookiest, scariest parts of the bottom, because they had some city rent-a-car, and I've got a four-wheel drive truck. So, you know, I did think it was a little humorous to say, well, we got to go to this muddy bank and down this, you won't get the perfect shot, and that's where we need to go. Well, they couldn't get up there. So half the film crew on one of the shots, you'll see at the end where I'm interviewing Doyle Holmes, the guy that he's in the foreground, he looks like he's about 8 feet tall, and I look like I'm 4 feet tall. That shot, half the film crew couldn't get there because their car could not get over there. It had rained that week, it was too muddy, they didn't have a four-wheel drive, the city car couldn't get up there. So I had to leave them up on the hill, and it was getting dark. We were running against time, and we were down. You can see the shot is kind of dark in the film because it was dropping. But this is an important part of the film because as we were down there, literally on the edge of where the road runs into the bayou, something magical occurred at that time, and you'll see in the movie. But it was fortunate we were there, but it was great because the other guys kept radioing back. Are y'all done yet? No, we got a little bit more, man. We're working on, well, it's getting dark up here, and we're just sitting up here in the dark, and we just heard something weird. Yeah, just hang on there, just hang on, we'll be up there. I mean, it was almost like a subtext to another movie, you know, something that you would find in the Bigfoot horror movie. But this was real, this is what was going on. So, you know, I kind of chuckled to myself a little bit because I knew they were sitting up there and getting a little spooked. But that was what made that film good, because when those guys from Ohio were done and ready to go back home, they loved Fouke, and they fell in love with the area so fast that they didn't want to leave. And I thought, well, that's a job well done. You know, I've introduced them to the town, introduced them to the legend, to the witnesses, taken them out in this beautiful countryside, and they felt an attachment. So there's something there that they could take back with them and translate that into the final product. So the film is, you know, it's not a high dollar, high budget thing. We didn't spend a lot of money, and in fact, it was backed mostly by Kickstarters who had the faith in us to put up the money. So, but the good thing about that is we didn't answer to any network TV or anyone else. We made the movie that we felt was most effective, and most of that is literally just letting the witnesses tell their stories. And that's the next level up. I can write a book and tell you about these things, but it's a great companion when you can watch it and hear some of these witnesses tell their stories themselves. And so even when I watch this film now, it's something that for the rest of my life I'll say, you know, this is a witness that had never told his story until I came along and I convinced him we were serious about this, and this goes on the record now forevermore for Southern Bigfoot. And especially if you have this movie or you watch it on Amazon or whatever, you got some skeptical people. If they'll sit down and devote an hour and 15 minutes to watch this and then say, now you're going to tell me there's nothing to it. Because these are good people, well-spoken people telling you about what they saw. And that's the thing, you know, people will ridicule you, but if you can, you know, have them watch a good documentary or give you a few moments of time, they'll start thinking a different way, because they're not thinking about beef jerky commercials. Now they're thinking about, wow, I don't know what to think. If that guy saw that, it sounds real to me. And it certainly was, because those witnesses definitely saw something. So anyway, the film, we're proud of it. This is a brand new cut that nobody's seen before, because we've got a new distributor that's going to put this out in some other markets. So they had a few requirements of this and that we needed to change, and so Seth and the team did some tweaks to it, and at the same time I noticed they were able to stick in a few extra pizzazz to it. So you're going to see a version of it that nobody's seen. Well, some people in Louisiana saw it the other night, but other than that, other than those 67 people that were there, you'll be the first. But it's a good little cut, and you know, the things you see in the film. If you haven't seen The Legend of Boggy Creek, you know, you can find that online or from me or wherever, and you know, you can kind of put these two together and enjoy them. So for the final finale here, Craig told me I had to do something really good this time. I'll play some guitar. People often ask me, "You're a musician, do you play?" You know, it's hard for me to play music because normally I have 5 other guys in my band. I'm not a solo artist. It's not really my thing, so to speak. But I can do a few things, and I think this song that I'm going to do is very appropriate to The Legend of Boggy Creek. If you don't know what I'm singing, you may be a little puzzled, but it's a catchy little song, and I will perform it, and if you know the words, sing along a little bit. And following the song, we will roll the Boggy Creek Monster. So stand by one moment.
Yeah.
I feel like Adam Sandler at this point. We don't have a fancy setup that I'll play, and hopefully this, let me test here. Test 1 2, test 1 2, test 1 2. Sound right?
Yeah.
Can you hear me in the back? Again, this is, you know, very impromptu and low level. I must be crazy. It's all for your entertainment, folks. Hey, Travis Crabtree, wait a minute for me. Let's go back in the bottoms, back where the fish are biting, where all the world's inviting, and nobody sees the flowers bloom but me. Hey, Travis Crabtree, do you see what I see? On the gentle winds of morning, a million birds are singing, like hell the bells are ringing, and nobody sees the flowers bloom but me. Drop me on a patch of land, never stepped upon by man, where the crystal waters flow deep, while the falcon flies high across the yellow night sky. Lord, ain't it great to be free? Hey, Travis Crabtree, it's the right life for me. Roaming alone in the bottoms, all the birds and beasts are crying, because the sun is dying, and nobody sees the flowers bloom but me. Nobody sees the flowers bloom but me. Nobody sees, yeah, nobody sees the flowers bloom but me. Thank you. That goes out to Smokey Crabtree with us in spirit. Thank you very much. Okay, I forgot one thing, yeah. While we're queuing up the movie here. Brought to you by Blackburn Syrup. You can't read that. That is actually Blackburn Syrup. There is a store over here around the block, the Blackburn's Jelly Store, and they've been in business since like 1927. They told me the year. Anyway, a long time. That's a lot of syrup, folks. And so, if you saw my presentation, you know the syrup joke. So, I am now the unofficial spokesperson for Blackburn's Pancake Syrup. And I thought I would sign this one right here, and maybe I'll throw a little trivia and give it away to you. When you go back from the Bigfoot conference, you say, yeah, I got all this cool stuff. Look at this track I got from Mr. Barrickman, and I got this, and this one guy, I got this autographed bottle of syrup.
Maybe they can start putting it in the Bigfoot bottle.
Yeah. My wheels are turning. I think we can make this mutually beneficial.
All about marketing, brother.
The lid on the bottle is good.
Yeah, little cowboy hat.
Now, of course, people ask me if I'm kin to these folks, and I don't know. Actually, we're all kin with each other, I'm sure, but these Blackburns, I said, all I know is I've never gotten the royalty check, so I don't think I'm a kin, but I am the unofficial spokesperson. So I signed this one up, trying to think of some trivia. Well, that's a speed and agility thing. Yeah, I kept thinking about that. Why aren't koala bears actually bears? Okay, I think I saw her hand first. Yes, ma'am. Oh, no, that's not it. Ma'am? Yes. Do you know the answer to that? Why aren't koalas actual bears? Well, true, but I'm looking for a less technical answer. Is Jeff? Is that Jeff? Yeah, Jeff.
Because they're not qualified?
Yes! They don't fit the qualifications. Jeff, this lovely woman is going to bring you your complimentary Blackburn syrup. If you're in town tomorrow, be sure and visit the Blackburn Jelly Store for your own bottle. They have several kinds and jellies. And just remember, koala bears don't fit the qualifications. And frogs with no legs are unhoppy. I had to bump up my comedy because I was staying over at the bed and breakfast with Cliff, and he was rolling out some great jokes today. Man, I gotta kick it up here, big time.
I got a bear joke, but I can't tell it.
Oh yeah, if it has to do with beer, it may not be from mixed company. Are you in a good spot there?
I think we're ready here. I'm just going
Okay.
to test the audio.
Okay.
Faster than a commercial.
And one last guy that I gotta say thanks to is Daniel. Daniel has been working all day, running the presentations, turning on and off lights, and working hard to make this thing happen. And it's behind the scenes. So please enjoy the movie. We present Boggy Creek Monster.